Physical illnesses may be cured by medicines. No medicine, however, can induce the state of boundless energy which comes when every cell in the body cooperates with the mind willingly, joyfully, in all that it seeks to do. Such radiant well-being comes after the mind has been cleared of every shadow of unwillingness, of fear, and of doubt. When one has learned to say yes to life, and when one has learned to love. Please repeat after me in a loud voice, awakening the conscious mind. My body cells obey my will.
My body cells obey my will.
They dance with divine vitality.
They dance with divine vitality.
I am well, I am strong.
I am well, I am strong.
I am a flowing river of boundless power and energy.
I am a flowing river of boundless power and energy.
And now in a conversational tone, my body cells obey my will.
My body cells obey my will.
They dance with divine vitality.
They dance with divine vitality.
I am well, I am strong.
I am well, I am strong.
I am a flowing river of boundless power and energy.
I am a flowing river of boundless power and energy.
And now we'll bring the affirmation into the subconscious by repeating it in a whisper. My body cells obey my will. They dance with divine vitality. I am well, I am strong. I am a flowing river of boundless power and energy.
I am flowing boundless power.
And now in silence, my body cells obey my will. They dance with divine vitality. I am well, I am strong. I am a flowing river of boundless power and energy. And now with deep concentration at the point between the eyebrows, bringing the affirmation into superconscious awareness, please repeat silently. My body cells obey my will. They dance with divine vitality. I am well, I am strong. I am a flowing river of boundless power and energy. O mighty source of all that is right and good, help me to see my strength as an expression of thy infinite power. Let me banish the darkness of disease. It is forever foreign to thy light.
Truth is one and eternal. Realize oneness with it in your deathless self within. On Palm Sunday, the throng joyfully acclaimed Jesus Christ as he entered Jerusalem, casting palm fronds before him and singing, Hosanna! Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. The Lord bless the King of Israel. Jesus Christ had told the people, the Son of Man must be lifted up. His reference, so we are told, was to the mode of his impending crucifixion. Some persons on that occasion had asked, who is this Son of Man? Was Jesus a human being merely? Those who on Palm Sunday called him king little realized the actual nature of his kingdom. he was far more than what they had imagined. Yes, of course, he ate, drank, walked, slept, and talked like others. His consciousness, however, was centered in infinity. Yes, again, he laughed like others. But his laughter expressed divine joy, not mere merriment. Again, he wept like them, but never with human grief. The tears he shed were for the sufferings of unenlightened human beings. Never were they shed in self-pity. Jesus Christ was wakeful in God. Most people, by contrast, are asleep spiritually. How strange to reflect that less than a week from that entry into Jerusalem, so joyously acclaimed, he would be arrested, condemned, and crucified. Such is the bitter sweetness of human existence. Smiles of welcome one day, insults, even persecution the next. How few realize that Christ's suffering would not be for himself, but for people's ignorance, for those who had not yet understood the deeper meaning, the reality that dwelt also in them. Everyone is born trailing clouds of glory, as the poet Wordsworth put it. Even the meanest beggar has lived a story, or will eventually have lived it, more magnificent than the greatest epic ever written. In the Bhagavad Gita, this dichotomy between the Son of Man and the inner Son of God is beautifully described. Sri Krishna, representing God in human form, reveals his true nature in infinity. In the 11th chapter of that great scripture, his chief disciple Arjuna exclaims, O infinite light, thy radiance spreading over the universe shines into that very darkest abyss. Thy voice overwhelms the roar of cosmic cataclysms. Lo, the myriad stars are thy diadem. Thy scepter radiates power everywhere. O immortal Brahman, Lord of all, again and again, at thy feet of infinity, I lie in prostration before thee. Thus, through Holy Scripture, God has spoken to mankind. Om, Om, Om.
I'd like to read from Master's book, Whispers from Eternity. This is called Come to Me, O Christ, as the Divine Shepherd of Souls. O Christ, thou rarest flower of hearts, thou didst sail the storm-tossed lake of prejudiced minds. Its evil-scented, gloomy thought waves lashed thy lily-tender soul. They crucified thee with their evil, yet didst thou shed on them the aroma of goodness and forgiveness, and help them to be purified by remorse, to make them attractively sweet-scented with thine all-loving soul flower. O thou great lover of all error-torn brothers, an unseen monument of the mightiest miracle of love was established in every heart when the magic of thy voice uttered, forgive them, for they know not what they do. Thou hast healed the cataract of hatred. We have now grown to see thy truth. Love thine enemies as thyself, for they are thy brothers, though sick and sleeping. Thou hast taught us not to increase their fevered blows of hatred with the bludgeons of revenge. Thine undying sympathy has inspired us to heal our brothers suffering in their delirium of anger with the soothing salve of divine forgiveness. Thy crucifixion reminds us of the daily crucifixion of our own fortitude by trials, of our wisdom by ignorance, of our self-control by the scathing touch of temptation, and of our love by misunderstanding. Thy test on the cross proved the victory of divine wisdom over ignorance, of thy divine soul over flesh, of thy happiness over pain, and of thy love over hatred. So are we heartened to bear our own crosses bravely and with faith. Teach us, when we are crucified by harshness, to pour out only sweetness, to bear with calmness the assaults of worry, and to give understanding unceasingly to those who unjustly hate us. O Shepherd of souls, wandering hearts are seeking of themselves the one fold of divine devotion. We have heard the ever-calling music of thy infinite kindness. Our one desire is to find our home in thee, to receive the cosmic Father with the joyous, open eyes of wisdom, and to know that all of us are sons of our own one God. Teach us to conquer the Satan of dividing selfishness, which prevents the gathering of all our brother souls into the one fold of spirit. Calling to one another by the watchword, love him who loves you, and love all who love you not. Let us rally beneath the canopy of the universal oneness of the Christ. Amen. So good morning once again, friends. You know, time must be illusory. We had met just 3 days ago. It feels like really the retreat is ending today, but so it is. Ananda ji pointed out many beautiful, subtle, practical teachings of the teachings of East and West. Like Master said, ignorance is 50-50. The interesting, for example, you know, it says sometimes in the Bible that we'll burn in eternal hellfire and damnation for some sin. Anandaji's simple reasoning, and then he discussed this with Yogananda. He said, is that really true, sir? Can a soul die? And Master says, never. It's impossible. Actually, he said, Master chuckled at that question. And he said, Master said, how can a finite cause have an infinite effect? And Swami said, what really happens is, when you're in good times, as we were in the last few days, it passes by very quickly. And when some challenge comes, think of a toothache or a headache or some crisis, it feels like the very initial thought is, I don't think this is going to end, you know. It just feels like it's going to go on and on and on. And Swami says that is how it's like the interpretation day, year, decade, and millennia later, it just becomes little or quite removed from what was initially intended to be shared. So on this beautiful weekend, you know, it's a spine-stiffening weekend on one level. The beginning of this week, and take it such that, okay, if somebody has foretold me tests are coming, Christ was foretold in the scriptures. It was told about him that this is how it's going to turn out. Now, these are perfected beings. Swami Kriyananda ji, you know, there was a reading about him. This will be mind-boggling to some of you, but Swami said when he first went to India, first time, 1958, he went to a place in Punjab, and the Maharaja, at that time, India still had kings and queens and princes, and one of the Maharajas, he learned meditation from Swamiji, And he said, oh, you should meet my astrologer and the Pandit we have. And this Pandit was no ordinary Pandit. They were holding certain scriptures and writings for 3,000 years. When in cycles of time, we were coming down from the higher ages. Now, fortunately, we are heading up. But the interesting thing, as a proof that there were higher ages, one of the things the great saints and sages do is they predict the lives of some people, actually thousands, tens of thousands of people. So anyway, to make a long story short, because Swami's written a book about this, there was a reading about him from 3,000 years ago. And it mentioned many interesting things that would happen in his life, including it said, you are three brothers, but no living sister. The one who was living died in your mother's womb. And Swami said he never knew that. So when he came back to America, he asked his mother, he said, did I have a sister? Did you have another child? And she was stunned. And she said, yes, it was a miscarriage. But she said, your father and I decided then that we would never talk about it, and we never have. How did you know? And Swami said, I found out. So anyway, the interesting thing is that for some of these great souls, if it is predicted that this is how it will turn out, even then it is not easy. For example, don't we all know we're going to leave the body sooner or later? We just came out of this pandemic. For me, I remember one time in the pandemic, I was preparing to start a ministry in a regional language of Marathi, which is the state where I serve in India. And I was thinking about it. Okay, we need teachers, books, translation. How do we do the promotion, online classes and such? And the entire planning, it was by this time 11 p.m. So I thought, my goodness, my mind is kind of just reeling under this whole thinking. I let me take a hot water shower and come back to it. So I went for a shower and I was just like massaging my head, massaging my body a little bit more than usual. And I don't know why. I just thought of massaging my gums. I never do that. Anyway, I was just trying to unwind from whatever I was thinking. So I was massaging my gum, and suddenly right here, I felt what is medically, my background is in medicine. What I would define right away is a painless, hard, immobile swelling. And I was like, what is that? And instantly my medical mind said, oh, a painless, hard, immobile swelling is a tumor, unless proven otherwise. So I was like, but by God's grace, my response was, I was like, okay, I made some progress. Because the moment I said, it's time to go. And I said, it's so close to the brain. It must just be a matter of time before this goes there. And I tell you exactly, my next thought was, now who should I hand over these notes of the Marathi ministry? And the third thought was, our flight's operating, because this was still the first wave. I said, our flight's operating because I should go and see my parents and just help them understand that death is not really death. I mean, you know how a yogi thinks. I mean, sometimes these are the benefits of knowing too much. So I said, it's happening, but nothing to worry. Let's see. And then the final thought was, wait a minute. Why don't you go and see your dentist friend tomorrow? So I kind of messaged him. It was late. I said, are you free? Are you seeing patients? He said, yeah, come on over. And I didn't mention anything else. And I went and I said, this is what it is. And he looked at it. He said, oh, it's some infection. A little pus is gathered. I said, really? I said, what about that medical definition of blah, blah, blah? He said, it is true. The only exception is when that infection is in the bone, because he says that's where it is contained. And it's painless, it is hard, it is immovable, and it looks like a tumor. So then I asked him, I said, now I don't want to go back and forth. I said, are you sure? Should I get some further tests done? He said, no, it's an infection. And anyway, it all worked out. But the point is, if it's coming to us, Kriyananda ji, I was sharing 2 days ago, his approach was very interesting. He said, on a daily basis, he would imagine worst case scenarios, especially of whatever he was in. And you may say, what a terrible way to start a project. But Swami says, no. He said, I know where I want this project to go. I know for who I'm doing it, for my guru, for people. But if everything is taken away, will I still be okay? And he said, yes, I've always made my peace with those things. For example, he wrote a beautiful book called Cities of Light. This was in the 80s, I believe. And he wrote it. He had just got a new desktop. Computers were new at that time. And he finished writing this book in 4 days. And how do you feel when you finished a project like that? He got up, he was happy, he went to the garden to stretch. And in the meantime, there was a power outage. And this is way before things got saved and all of that. So he just stretched, energized. He came back in and found this black screen. He's like, what happened? What happened? Where's my book? And it was all erased. And for a moment, Swami was like, oh no. And you may say, a normal response would be, Divine Mother, why did you do this? What's going on? Here I'm trying to write a book for you. Guruji, what are you doing? And Swami says, he took a deep breath. He's like, okay, well, what am I going to do about this? And he said, the book came through me. I know how to do this again. And he sat down for 16 hours straight, finished the book with hardly any editing. And Swami says that was the plus point. He said, I didn't have to edit it because it was so fresh. So, it's now that's quite an example, but why not? Even again, as I was sharing a few days ago, even if one person can somehow work with his, call it biology, his brain, his hormones, his soul in such a way that they are able to see this positive attitude like Christ. He knows what's coming. Yet, as Rohan was reading over there, he participated so beautifully in the drama, which is what is many times confusing to us. That is he happy? Is he sad? Is he in pain? Is he not? Like somebody asked Ramana Maharshi when he had a big tumor over here. They said, are you in pain? I mean, because he was not allowing any treatment to happen. And somebody actually once saw his mother's face in that tumor. It came and went. And sometimes these great souls take on people's karma. So they said, are you in pain? He said, there is pain, but there is no pain also. Which is to say, if you relate to the body, which is honestly where all of us are, the Son of Man, Yogananda explained, which is why Christ said, the Son of Man will be lifted up. He will be put to the cross. On the cross, he will be crucified. And it seems terrible. It is terrible on one level. Why treat anybody's body like that or anybody? However, the good news is the Son of God needn't be affected. And as Christ said, seek ye, the statement was, to as many as received him, gave he the power to become sons of God. So this understanding that he's the only Son of God, no. The only Son of God is the consciousness, which is, there has to be only one consciousness, Christ consciousness, super consciousness, Krishna consciousness, call it by whatever name, so that you approach your understanding through that doorway. But the level of consciousness where you are beyond the body, you're even-minded, you're joyful, you're understanding the larger rhythms of time. You understand that these are dark ages, as Christ did, and you say, okay, if this is how the teachings must be taught, if this is how God has planned it, this is how I will participate in the flow. Now, his and Swami Kriyananda's, for example, and you read the life of some saints, I don't think any saint has had it easy. It's not a slide into heaven. It's a climb upwards. At the same time, I was sharing with somebody yesterday that efforts end in ease. The beginning is hard. It seems so daunting. You're like, maybe I'll think about it tomorrow and tomorrow. And, lifetimes go by like that. Nobody's talking about it. Nobody's standing up to it. And suddenly we've postponed it. Like Sri Yukteswarji said, now death is at thy door and you have time no more. And he said, when things were easy, when you had time, when you could have died through meditation. Here's another thing. In meditation, we really touch such deep relaxation that the heart pumping is not required. Before that, the proof comes through breathing. Breathing is not required. When you run, you need more breathing. When you don't run, less. When you sleep, less so. When you meditate deeply, for once, the breath can also rest. The heart can rest. The ego is put to rest. When the ego rests, basically what it does, as David was sharing, it relaxes upwards. This is the seat of the ego, the medulla oblongata. And and this is interestingly also the seat of the autonomic cardiorespiratory centers. From the medulla, in the medulla oblongata, there are certain chemoreceptors. And when they sense the level of carbon dioxide in the blood is increasing, this happens in a flip second. So it increases the heart rate, increases the oxygenation and all of that. On the other hand, when that requirement goes down, we can rest. Swami Kriyananda ji was so practical. He once defined meditation. It's one of my favorite definitions. He said, meditation is ever deeper relaxation in God. And so let's tie some of these things together. Ever deeper relaxation in God, the affirmation of good health. And was Christ in good health? I don't know about what he ate, what his diet was like, because diet has something to do with health. But Yogananda fortunately again clarified this big misconception. He said, don't make food your religion. He said, food and diet are secondary to yoga practice. Like Christ said, it is not what goes inside your mouth that makes you healthy. It is what comes out of it. That's what makes you holy, sorry. He said, that's what makes you holy. So on one level, and I was sharing with somebody that my background, let's say I said, is in medicine, but all of us can be doctors. One day in my night rounds, I was working for a hospital in Delhi, doing my residency. It was called St. Stephen's Hospital. Beautiful charitable hospital. And one of the good things about that place was it had paintings from the life of Christ all over the place, different departments, emergency here and there. And I remember one night, I was going from one department early morning actually to another place. And I saw this picture of Christ praying to God. Actually, it was in the Garden of Gethsemane. And this thought just naturally came to me. I said, isn't it amazing? He never went to medical school. Yet he was the healer of all healers. Mm-hmm. So medical books, again, are good. They'll tell you something about, or a lot about the body. But the prime requisite to be a healer, to be in good health, is, as Kyle was reading, overcoming unwillingness, fear, doubt. Because your diet could be okay. With the best of diets, emotions and mind and ego still remains. So when Christ was able to relax so deeply that mother or father, he used to pray to God as Father, that does this have to happen? And when he got the response, yes, it must, he said, let this cup pass through me. And he relaxed in that divine will. And to be able to differentiate that this body, somebody, once said to Swami Kriyananda ji, he had a cancer and other challenges were going on. Somebody said, again, why is Divine Mother doing this to you? Here you're trying to serve God, you're 80 years old and such. And Swami was very clear and firm. You see, they know what's really going on. He said, please. He says, this is Divine Mother's body. This is God's body. She can do whatever she wants with it. So that ability to not take things personally. Now you have to take care of the body. He did take care of the body, but he used to only say, as long as I can serve my guru. And that's what we are seeing in the reading, that I will eat, I will walk, I will laugh, I will live, I will grieve if I have to. But it's not a personal grieving. Oh, I got cancer, or oh, do you really have to crucify me? No, some movies unfortunately have depicted Christ in pain. It's not that he didn't have pain, but his pain was not physical. Master said he was beyond that. But his pain was of a spiritual nature. The sorrow that comes when imagine if we have a Christ amongst us and we are simply not tuning into him or her, listening to him, and he knows he's going to leave. Because the opportunity for all of us, if infinite spirit is all fine, but when you have somebody with you, Master said you cannot argue even with a scripture. But if you talk to a master, if you talk to a guru, if you talk to Christ, he was telling his disciples that the light will not be with you soon. Many stories happened around that time. People were like, well, why are we doing this? Is this important? Why is he talking so much about himself? Well, he's about to leave and you will be at a loss. We will be at a loss. So the form has a role. On the other hand, The good news is, and Kelly will address us next week on the joyful subject of Easter, because that's the winning of the Spirit, the proof. And that was not an isolated event. Right here, there in Pune, Swami Sri Yukteswarji appeared to a devotee in 2022 when the devotee was dying. And 2 days after he died, his wife told us that he came back. I saw my husband on the favorite couch in his living room. And she said that, but she rushed to touch him, embrace him. He says, "Don't touch me. This is not my physical form. I am exiting." And then she said she saw these three colors, yellow, white, and blue. That light came from their living room straight onto the couch where he was sitting, and he levitated and left in that light. 2022. Sri Yukteswarji had come to him a few days before and said to him in a physical form, then he became smaller, 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 and levitated, entered his spiritual eye, and his name was Bhuvan. He said, "Bhuvan, don't worry. I am in every cell of your body." Now, again, you would think, "Oh, thank God, thank you. If you're in my body, now my tumor will heal." He was suffering from an incurable muscle cancer on the forearm. No. Guru is in every cell of your body, but that didn't heal him. He left his body, but he took him to the right place. He showed his wife what it's all about. So these attachments, false attachments, if we have to be attached, let's be attached to Christ consciousness. Let's cry for that. Let's pray for that. Nothing is lost. The fear comes, again, as Kyle was reading that fear and doubt comes. Well, if I merge in God, what about me? I will cease to exist. No, you don't cease to exist. 1,000 years after Christ had left his body, he appeared in form and has appeared to many people. He appeared to Yogananda ji. And he said that you can recall, you never cease to exist. As a memory, even your egoic lives, they all stay in God. The only difference is you are now in all bodies. And that is where the fun begins. That's the kind of life. Then Anandmayi Ma said, your body is like a plate on which some prasad, as we will serve some prasad after this. She said there is some prasad. The prasad is God realization. So the body, the plate is as good as the prasad on it. Once you've eaten that, you can throw the plate. You can wash it and use it again. You can do whatever you feel like. So as bittersweet as this week will be, I think it's bitter only if we don't think deeply enough at the final outcome that is promised to each one of us. Again, like Christ said, be ye perfect, even as your Father, which is in heaven, is perfect. And people read that, they're like, well, I'll come back to it another day. This is too much for me. I can't leave one bad habit. Or what about perfection? But Master again explained, perfection in spirit. The form, it is already mutated on one level. It's a limited, unpredictable expression of spirit. Why think of the form? Master says you're polishing your house, you're polishing your body, polishing, then death comes. He said, work on the spirit. Then body should be taken care of. But he said, know how to prioritize. What's important, what is lasting, and what is not lasting. So as we move from Palm Sunday, and it's good. Christ, as he entered, he participated in that joy. He let people express their adoration for him. But then to his close disciples, he was again and again trying to remind. And Swami was like that. I was there before he left his body. He was hinting, I was telling some friends that, he was not mincing words. He was not wasting time. He was telling you things about 20 years from now, 10 years from now. If you were serious to hear, he was letting you know. Why? Because he was going to leave the body, and then doubt, despair, sadness, I don't know, hopelessness, many things come upon a devotee when it's like being orphaned for a disciple. But on the other hand, as he came back in somebody's dream, and to so many people, and I'll maybe close with one story, which is a lead away into the next week of resurrection. He came to somebody in a dream and he said, meet me here in super consciousness. I'm always there. And I'll close with this story to another one. after he left his body, April 21st it was. And that time is coming too, April 21st. I think it's the day after Easter. And what had happened, Swami passed away in 2013, and I had gone from India with some devotees. And one very good friend of mine who are founding members in Assisi, and a lady told me the dream on the third day of my arrival. And she said, because Swami had the last wish that his body should be buried in Ananda village, California, they were making the necessary procedure was going on. So it took 5 to 6 days for that to happen. And in those days, people were coming from around the world, and there was a constant vigil around the coffin and his body. So she said on the second night of his passing, past midnight, she was supposed to be there for at least 2 hours. And she said it so happened there was nobody else in the temple. So she said, here I was meditating. Swami's body was there. And she said, just like that, in the middle of the meditation, this big blue tunnel of light came from his coffin, his body, to her heart and spiritual eye. And she had met Swami with her husband 5 days before he left his body, and she had wanted a name, a spiritual name, like many people do, and she wanted it pertaining to peace. She wanted that quality more deeply in her life. So she went, but when they went, it would happen so many times. I went to see Swami sometimes. I simply forgot why I had sort of not even come there, but you forget your questions. You see, when somebody has no questions, and they are absolutely clear, it's interesting that magnetism can make you forget questions. If Christ is loving, you sit near him, or his disciples became loving, because that is true teaching, osmosis, magnetism, silent. So in that way, she said, I went to see Swami. We were very clear why we are going. Half an hour later, we walked out. As I was putting my shoes, the thought came back, wait a minute. I didn't even ask him for a spiritual name. Then her husband said, oh, it's late in the night. He gave us so much time. Maybe another time. She said, okay. Well, 5 days later, he left his body. 2 days after he left his body, this light comes from his body, coffin, into her heart and spiritual eye. And he looks at her. And she sees his face and he smiles. He says, Shanti Ma. And peace translates to Shanti in Hindi. So he says, and Ma is mother. He says, Shanti Ma. She didn't know what to say. He says, Shanti Ma. And she says, sir, are you talking to me? He said, I don't see anybody else around. And he started laughing. And she thanked him, and he blessed her and receded into the light went away. Now, next morning, she was serving in the kitchen. So somebody, her given name was Graziella. So somebody asked her, and they said, Graziella, can you give me this pan? And she said, sure. And she said, but by the way, my name is now Shantima. Till that time, only Swami gave names. So this person said, well, that's wonderful. Who gave you that name? And she narrated the incident. This person was wide-eyed. And it made Shantima think that maybe this is just a very personal experience, not meant to be publicly shared. So she excused herself from the kitchen, went and to Swami's body, and she said inwardly she apologized. She said, I'm so sorry. Please tell me, what am I supposed to do with this name? And she said he came back right away in her vision at the spiritual eye. And he said, of course, it's your new name. People should call you Shanti Ma. And he said, now I want you to tell them that they should call you Shanti Ma. Then he said, but please tell them one more thing. And this is important for all of us in these 2 weeks. Meditate on it. Swami said, please tell them that just as I have come to you, I can come to each one of them. But they have to call to me. Otherwise, I cannot come. Such is the divine law. Now, there's a lot over there. Like we were discussing, God works through instruments. God works in a certain way. Master's autobiography starts the disciple-guru relationship. We often think, oh, God is great, gurus are great. They know what has to be done. They lay it upon me. Once in a while as a grace to wake us up. But often it is guru relationship. You call out to God, you call out to Guru, you ask the question, and the universe responds. Even Sri Krishna, he says to the doubter, I am his doubt. And you think, well, that's not good. No, it is an expression of respect, of love, that it's okay, Aditya. You want to doubt me? It's okay. You want to love me? I'll walk on that bridge of love, which is why the saints feel God's love so much. And a person who loves him once a month, they'll say, yeah, God is okay. I lay a flower in front of him. Why not do more? Why not live in him, be in him all the time like the masters do? So that is, I think, and I feel, I hope I have convinced you, it is the best way to lead our bodily life, earthly life. You still eat, walk, laugh, and all that, like the reading was saying. And then when it comes to go, you go. And the same God is residing in everybody, friends, family, and it is a divine task assigned to each person. Parents cannot force it upon a child. You cannot steal it from a sibling. Well, some generosity can happen. It's like money a little bit. You can give your blessings a little bit here and there, but you have to earn it, you have to want it, and God is freely giving it, distributing it to everybody because we are all his children. Isn't it wonderful? So let's take it with both arms and move into this week, especially of Easter, of resurrection of Christ. Om Guru. I would like to invite the child now to take us further.
Basket next to